Hello, and welcome to the basement of Accidental Theatre. We are directly underneath the theatre itself, and I'm sat beside a big chair, and in that big chair is Barry Cullen. Hello, Barry, welcome.
Hello.
So we're here to just chat to Barry about his work. We've got an exciting gig coming up that Barry's going to be attending or performing at here next beginning of February on the 2nd, called Handmade Music. It's the first of a whole series of experimental music nights that we're hosting that developed by Sonic Arts Research Centre and Moving On Music. So Barry, we thought we'd just invite you down for a nice little chat and to see who are you? Who is this fantastic artist who'll be performing here, experimenting with music in our theatre in only a couple of weeks' time?
Well, my name is Barry Joseph Cullen, and I've been making music for quite a while in different guises, and I like to play with all sorts of types of instruments. You know, acoustic, electronic, and I like to make my own instruments. So it'll have a DIY aspect to the evening.
Because you performed recently here for last year for the Sonorities Festival in a similarly titled event called Handmade Music then as well, which is kind of where I think the name for the project that's about to start in February came from. And you performed in our book bar upstairs with that was quite a fascinating performance for us for the venue team who are watching. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what was is that a taste of what we'll have coming up?
Yeah, it was a very I've got very fond memories of that. It was a piece which brings together kind of two areas that I'm really interested in. One is a kind of art concept that I call drone and drama, and I think it covers a lot of just a lot of what we do in life. You know, drone being the boring or the calm parts of life, and drama being the spicy, sometimes hard to manage or exciting parts. So I made an instrument called drone and drama, which was capable of making really peaceful sine wave sounds, very pure, very restful, and it also had a kind of chaos generator using phase lock loops with broken clocks, which created a much more erratic sort of the sound of friction. And I melded them along with some other homemade string instruments, diddley bows. And I did I created an ambience and then weaved into it an old folk song that I really enjoy called The Cobbler. It was made famous by numerous other singers, some of them from this island, some of them from further afield. But the idea of The Cobbler I think is really interesting. Apart from it being associated with people who mend shoes, I think the idea of cobbling is a really fun area of activity, where to cobble things together is a bit like improvising with materials. Yeah. But cobbling as a way of repairing and making, it can be associated with the non-expert, and I think that's something that I in my work in education is something that I would be very much encouraging people to do, to try and reduce barriers to participation. Encouraging them to do and to feel free to feel, because you're often dealing with things which don't have to be precious. Yeah. And the idea of cobbling and of doing and of improvising and of playing with materials, it's really kind of led to the instrument making, and it led to this kind of reversioning of old folk songs. I think some people have the idea that music has a lot of rules and art has a lot of rules. Like I don't get it, or I haven't been trained, I can't take part. I think by showing these sort of these areas of practice in the work that I do, it's trying to give life to the idea that improvisation is something that we all take part in.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's a diddley bow?
A diddley bow is it's a monochord, which is a one-string instrument. So like a minimalist guitar.
Did you make a diddley bow, or is it a kind of a synthesized version of a diddley bow that was included in it?
Yeah, well, the original diddley bows that I've come across were a piece of wire, two nails on the side of the wooden house, just out the side of the house. Two nails into the wall, a bit of wire wrapped around it, make it tight, and then you stick a wedge, maybe a bottle under the end of it, so it makes it taut,
So
and then you can tap it with sticks or your hand, and it's just like so you can play it rhythmically and make it like a tuned percussion.
So you can play your house.
Yeah. There's a nice example of one of them being made by the guitarist from the White Stripes. What's his name?
Jack
White.
Jack White, yeah.
Yeah. And he makes one at the start of a documentary called "There Will Be Noise." I think it is called.
Very cool.
It's about the history of fuzzy guitars and stuff. So the version I'm making actually is from a collapsed table. It was in a house that I was renting. There was like a little table out the back, and I was just sitting in the front room one day, and I heard a big clatter, and I look out the back window, and I see a bird flying away, and there were plant pots on the old table, and just everything was everywhere. And I was a bit sad because like the plants had suffered, the furniture had come to pteases, but I just decided to salvage some of this old furniture, and I turned it into cut out some parts.
I really hope that was a massive bird. It was like a pterodactyl.
It was a king size pigeon. It was a big old pigeon, But it's so that's where it came from, and I made the first one, and it was rudimentary. I had some parts off a rotten bass guitar, and by rotten I mean it was in a little underground space like this here, which had flooded, and the hardware had all got all rusty and stuff. But I salvaged parts that looked like they were not completely covered in filth, and it turns out they worked. So I cobbled that the bass guitar pickup into the table leg, and it became an amplified diddly bow. And a week later, I decided that I wanted to give it a go and try and make it with two strings, and that worked out. And that's what we'll be playing. At the show, we'll be playing the two-string diddly bow made out of the second leg of the table.
So it still stays a diddly bow even though it's not a mono stringed instrument.
Well, yeah.
Is diddly then partly just because it's improvised together?
It could be. No, I'm not totally sure because I'd like to think that it's in some way connected to Bo Diddley, the rock and roll guitar player.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a bit older than that there. There's an idea of a type of improvised lilting that you can do with your voice called diddling, and it's often associated with improvising Sean Noss vocal, like old style Irish trad vocal.
Interesting.
Where you might use little ornamentations and triplets, across so. An example might be like a da diddly da dum da diddly dum da, and those little triplets is diddly da. Those are that's known as diddling. That's one version of diddling. So it could be attached to that there. So wherever you're improvising with this one string or this minimal bunch of ingredients, it's the rhythm that you put into it.
Interesting.
That creates the interest maybe.
We've actually got a wee comment here from Michael Donnelly. He doesn't ask you a question, and I do point out that you can ask Barry questions if you wish. But Michael kind of is commented that he has no question, but it's good to see you after and hear you speak after about 20 years. So that's from Michael.
If that's who I think it is, that's probably Smick. How you doing, Smick? I hope you're well. I hope your hair's still long and curly, and I hope all your kin are staying well and healthy, and you're still playing music like you always did. Great bunch of lads. Very musical family. His older brother would have been in the acoustic punk beat combo called Watercress. Who were very, very popular around Ireland, north and south, a couple of years ago.
So tell me, what have you got coming up? So we've got Handmade music on the 2nd, and what have you got coming up apart from that?
Well, I've also got another performance which is going to be up in Cirque, the Southeastern Regional College up in Bangor, as part of another student-led, student-organised mini festival of experimental media. There I'll be doing some similar types of work, but I'll be doing an AV piece, an audio-visual piece, and it's based on a composition I wrote maybe about 10 years ago called AV Avalanche, and it'll be slow-moving drone music, kind of a precursor to what I mentioned there as drone and drama, and it's using it's a semi-improvised piece where there's a it's a bit like you, instead of composing notes on a stave, like dots and lines. Instead, what I do is I compose a technological ecosystem, a kind of activist environment, which is reactive and responsive. And it's and what I do is I set up a collection of audio and visual feedback. I'm using quite old-fashioned technologies, so they're not like although I'll use like a modern digital interface to connect to all the exhibition, the performance hardware. I use some quite outmoded, like late 70s to early 90s audio and video technology to color the signals and to adjust the amplitudes of the signals so that they create a kind of a network of influence where they're both generative and responsive. So every time it's performed, it's quite different, and it'll be slightly informed by the power conditioning in the building, through to the reflections of the of the wall of the architecture of the space. So it's really, I've got some clips of it online, but it's supposed to be a performance, which is like creating something live for the people who are present.
Because the people present will also change the nature of the sounds, because as we know, people will dampen that sound or change it, and their movement will probably come into it as well in some ways.
Yeah. Well, like just somebody standing in front of the speakers instead of sitting down in front of the speakers, that'll change things. But I think that's actually one of the things which I think is really, really valuable about doing, putting in the effort to put on a performance, is that whenever you're in the room listening to a performance, it's totally different. Maybe it might be quite subtle for some people if they're not happy with their listening habits or not got finely tuned listening habits. It's really about really listening. Like a live performance will not be the same as a set of acoustic facts, in comparison to hearing the same composition as a hi-fi recording, even with a really good sound system. It's really about the reflections in the room and the feeling that you get from being around other people.
Because I come from a theatre background, so we're all about the shared experience, and it is very much in performance is a very different thing every night, and it's I mean that's obvious in music, but even more within your work, what you're saying is that it's responsive to the environment, to the people, to the mood of the moment of the performer. It's responsive in so many different ways. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's something that
that's in Cirque. Yeah.
That's in Cirque and Bangor.
Bangor,
and that'll be the last Friday of the month.
Last Friday of the month. And if people want to find out more about you in general, it's Barry Joseph Cullen. Is it .com?
It is .com, yeah.
So just make sure you kind of check out Barry's website for more details. Michael Donnelly also says that Smick is right. Her isn't too great, but I am pointing in the right direction.
Great stuff.
Great stuff. Feel free to, again, fire anything through if you wish. If you want to tell Barry the condition of your hair, please feel free.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by your the development of your follicles. I think it's a great way of measuring the passage of time, and how dumb we stay, or how smart we're getting, or how slowly that happens. How slowly we stay dumb, or how quickly we become smart. Gets reflected in the hair. How much have you got, and what colour it stays, or what?
Definitely colour.
The thing we wanted to say there about not just things being different. I think that's something that it fed a strand of research that I was doing on a project, and it's led me to believe that the subtleties of differences which occur whenever we perform or record versions is really valuable as a way to build an archive that we can consult and reflect upon to sort of interrogate all sorts of different practices. And I think this goes beyond the arts and crafts, and it actually extends into all areas of life, be it from manual construction through to maybe theoretical a corporate organization. The idea of collecting and not just finding time to look back and reflect, but actually making time to reflect, and actually to value versions as not just finished pieces, but as moments of how far you've got, how close to success you've got, and then being able to look back and question what options had not been explored.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, because reflective practice is something that's often built into the arts, but very, very rarely built into other things. And taking the time to reflect is a hard thing to do, even in even in the artistic practice, because we often I know I have the tendency of once you finish something, you want to immediately move on. Or you haven't got the energy to move on, or even to sit still and reflect. So that sounds amazing that you've.
I think it's one of those examples of something that the arts can be beneficial as a way to invite people who are maybe not in art, but who like to maybe have a peep at it or have a little taste of it. That if you're hopefully doing it right, you can make those sort of suggestions either really explicitly or subliminally into sort of spreading that as an idea, as I guess a bit like doing a favour, without overcooking it, like no one wants to have like big ideas stuffed down their throats, but like if you can make that suggestion, that's it might be useful, and
definitely
why not share,
So Handmade Music, which is on the second, the first Thursday of each month coming up. So you're on the very first Handmade Music on the 2nd of February.
Yeah.
Right here in Accidental, right above us, about another 2 meters above us.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? What's happening?
I'm going to be doing a collection of semi-improvised pieces. Each of them will have a different collection of instruments. Some of them will be commercially bought, some of them will be kits that I've modified, some of them will be instruments that I've built completely of my own design, and we'll be using like little sort of game type scores, where we'll have like I'll create like a little set of routines to move around the instruments in a semi-improvised fashion, and there'll be, say, we're going for about 25-30 minutes. So there'll be several movements within it. Some of them will be very, very relaxing, very good for people who want to sit down and focus on their breathing. Some will be a little bit more erratic, maybe even might be some toe tapping. There might even be a little. I'm working on a version of an old folk song that I'm going to weave into it, which may have some people maybe singing along.
Oh, nice.
But that's one of the great things about going out to a show is a sing-along. I love that,
Handmade Music, because it's a new night, and given what we just said about performance and about how performance is important to respond to the audience and getting up, the nature of this night and the fact do you find that it's going to be quite important, the fact that we're trying to establish, with SARC and Moving On Music and ourselves, trying to establish this experimental music night. We haven't defined it very tightly. Mick and Paul and myself had emails back and forth this week about how to describe the blurb of the event, and there's a very strong kind of idea that we don't want to define it too heavily right at the beginning.
Yep.
And as much as I kept telling Mick, we need to sell it.
Yeah.
But we don't want to define it too much. So what do you think that the idea of this night is important to Belfast? Because Belfast is often seen as trapped within a bit more of a naturalistic tendency. We don't experiment as much. We don't have a huge population to find audiences for more niche work. So just
interesting. There's some really, really resonant words that you're using there that really just ring out. That's my cup of tea. And to hear you say, experimental. I think it's maybe a bit of a vague word, but I like that.
Definitely.
To hear
it's kind of lost all meaning in some ways now as a word, because without that specificity, I think you're spot on that you need that specificity to kind of qualify a bit more.
Yeah, but you also mentioned the word niche, and I think that's really. I think that's something that actually is very, very appealing, and because it's non-genre specific, and if anything, there's great philosophers that have written quite salient essays on the idea that genre is obsolete. We're post-genre, but it's a niche sound or it's a niche mood, and I think that's really what people want on a night out. They kind of go, I'm in the mood for X, that's where I'm going to go and get it. And the idea of being overly prescriptive about what constitutes experimental, or I think it's maybe less valuable. I think we could, having a very broad and open sort of brief, which is where the words are slippery. The way you describe it, and that's a good thing. Like language is polysemic, and all these things, they can mean different things to different people depending, what mood they're in, or how tight their collar is, or whatever. Like you could read the same passage on a bus, and it means something different to you if you're reading it in the kitchen. So like the idea of like the pitch, I think keeping it elastic. I really like the idea of like being like music, movement, chat. That's even call my stuff music could be controversial for some people. Just kind of go, that's noise, and I go, well, that's a political conversation. Let's crack up, open a bottle of whiskey and talk about it, like because. What else is worth talking about?
But then that's the interesting factor is the community aspect of that. The discussion, the debate, the is this music? Oh, well, let's sit down and hash this out.
Yeah, where did it stop? Where did the music stop? Where did the music stop and the noise kicked in?
But that's one of the reasons.
3 minutes, 20 seconds.
I think this event is kind of trying to kick off. It's trying to kick that debate, that community, that place to experiment, given that the tenuous connections to reality that word has. But all those kind of things are kind of what's happening with I think the Handmade Music Night. And as an artist here, given that this is the start of the program, what do you think? What does it mean to you? That this is starting. Will it be helpful? Will it be an interesting thing? Will you come to other nights to sit and chat and debate music over a whiskey?
There's nothing I like better, and yes, I will. I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. I think the idea of a venue which is open to hosting experimental music, niche music, fringe tones, new, exciting, unregulated, previously unnamed styles. That's a fantastic thing, and I think it's a really big gift to the people on this island to have a venue that's being quite explicitly open in this way. I can imagine it being warmly received by people who've expressed to me that they've got a real appetite to meet others who share this sort of passion, this sort of eagerness to listen to things that they can only usually listen to in quite private or sort of personally curated spaces, to have a venue that they can share with other people. I think that's a really, really valuable thing. Yeah. I've memories of like really special venues, like say punk nights at the front page, or like like a dub reggae nights over at Gyros. Like these venues, they were open for free play with the music, and they built a community around them. And you would go to them, even if you didn't know any of the names. You just kind of go, that's where I'm going to go. Why? I'll probably meet somebody that I like. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a good time. I may meet nobody that I know, but I might meet somebody new. I may not like the music, but it's worth the risk.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, you may not like the music, but that doesn't matter, because it's it's as you say, you can chat about whether you like it or don't like it, and what you love and what you hate, and it's about meeting other people to have that debate and have that enjoyable time, as you say, that chance to be open and be free with it. I think.
Yeah, you just put in your earplugs and then just go, I love your T-shirt.
Yeah, have a
where
smoke.
Where did you get that T-shirt from?
Yeah, exactly. Have a smoke during something you're not too happy with. Come back in.
Eat an apple and comb your hair or whatever, but like come along, and give it a go. That's part of the spirit of getting. It's one of the best things to do, is to find somewhere where you don't know exactly what's on the menu. It's great if you're in the mood for pizza, go to a pizza place. Yeah. If you're in the mood for piano jazz, go to a piano jazz place. Yeah. If you're in the mood for techno, hopefully you'll find the right place. Yeah. But if you're in for something which is unlikely to be bothering the radio airwaves, and you just go, I'll give that a go. I'm in the mood for something, I don't know what it is. This seems like it might be the kind of initiative that might be just right for that type of mood.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you've mentioned before. Yeah, when you arrived as well, you talk about how some of your work, I think, is responding to, and my mind is not going to quite get around the description of this correctly, so apologies. But the idea that we are responding to the environment we have from the the list of what we've been told a certain thing is already. So even the term of experimental, the term of niche puts it into a certain way, and we start to think about it in those terms. But something you just said there now is lovely, which is we don't know what this is going to be, and it's going to be open. So it's going to create those things that are not within a genre, they're not within a description. It'll create the opportunity for those things to be, and that's here in the heart of Belfast. And it's going to be live. It's going to be in person. It's going to be online. You can get it every which way. You can join us in the community live as a person. You can join us as a community live from Toronto, from anywhere in the world, and get involved. This is just the start of something quite fun.
Well, I hope if anybody out there is going to be attending, feel free to come and have a chat. Don't be a stranger, you know.
So thank you very much, Barry. That's Handmade Music is coming up on the 2nd of February. Barry is in Cirque in Bangor, and the last Saturday of this month.
Last Friday.
Last Friday, thank you very much. Last Friday this month. Barry's on barryjosephcullen.com.
Yes.
So please check him out.
And may I also add, if you're interested in some of the community of work that I've been involved in, please look into Toneburst.bandcamp and the Community of Practice and Co. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you so much. We have next week actually Cosmic Jam, which is our open mic night, which is on Thursday. Before that is Tea and Jam, which is just a little kind of community thing. You can come round, sing a song, have a cup of tea, and then we go straight into Cosmic Jam after that. And Handmade Music, 2nd of February. Check it out. Thanks so much for watching. All the best.